Thank you, Anna. Thank you for those lovely words. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you here this evening. I never realised I had so many friends. And I do promise I know them all. They're not from Rent-A-Crowd. They're all genuine. But there's probably 4 different groupings of people here this evening. My IDL colleagues and the OJD team. A lot of them are still working actually, because apart from this reception there's 200 up for dinner later tonight. But my former IDL colleagues, many who are still great friends today. And now I'm joining that group, a group that I indeed christened some years ago. The majority of these retired back in 1977, took an early retirement package. And I christened them the New Aged Pensioners, because they all said at that stage, I'm not old enough to go to that Christmas party with elderly people coming in on sticks. So we have our own little bash every year. Now I've joined them, and I'll be still running that every Christmas. 3 is my great buddies from the Irish tourism industry, with whom I've shared some great times. And indeed, I know I will continue to do so. We all know that growing your business in this industry is all about building relationships. And indeed, the founder of the Ricard company, the late Paul Ricard, had a motto which said, make a new friend every day. And I certainly don't think I let him down in that respect. I want to make a special thanks to people who made a special effort here this evening, to all of you, but a special effort from Jim and Joyce Paul, who travelled over from London at their own expense, I'm not allowed, to be here this evening. So maybe you'll do a whip around later. And also Brian and Maureen McColgan, who were meant to be on a plane to Marbella this evening. And when they heard of this gig, they changed their flight till tomorrow. So that's what real friends are for. I'd like to welcome also my family and some close friends, especially my wonderful, supportive wife, Eileen. My 3 daughters, Grace, Ivana and Ruth, and my new daughter-in-law of just 10 weeks, Hannah. Her new husband, my son, is at a stag down in Kilkenny, but it's for him. He's the best man at the wedding, so he was very upset that he couldn't be here. But Anna mentioned some of my successes, and it's said that behind every successful businessman is a good woman. On many occasions over the years, when I especially went on long-haul flights, or long-haul trips, which could be 2 weeks in the trot, and so Eileen would be at home, meant probably 3 weekends away from home. The weekend you go, the middle weekend, and the weekend you come back. But Eileen was at home with 4 kids, but I honestly say she never complained once. And to my extended family and friends, I want to thank you for entertaining her on some of those lonely weekends when she was home alone. I stand here tonight, I have to say, with very mixed emotions. Some happy, some sad. 30 years service is a hell of a long time to give any one company. Indeed, that's more than half my lifetime. But I have to say that they were 30 extremely happy years, and I hold some wonderful memories. Mainly with that New Age Pensioners gang, who I worked with alongside for probably 20 of those 30 years, across the road in Old Head Office. There were great days, we got the job done, but we had such fun along the way. And it was probably always a big, happy family atmosphere. And I think, I hope I have, instilled that working environment here in the OJD and the JEM. Recent days, I've probably been thinking of all the good times. Sort of the funny incidents at certain times, as Paddy Crosby used to state in the school around the corner. But I started in domestic sales back in 1984. And I remember my first company conference, I had to share a room with my old buddy Ken Manning down there, one of those New Age pensioners. But I remember after the conference, we came up to the room to shower and change, to go back down for dinner. And he said, hang on a minute, he says, I just have to ring my mother. So he wanted to ring his elderly widowed mother just to make sure she was expecting a call from him. So he says, hang on, and we go down together. So anyway, I just heard him saying, yeah, no, I'm here with my friend John. You've heard me talk about John, but then I heard him saying, oh, he's 5 or 6 years. I said, what is the mother asking him? So anyway, I was continuing putting gel in my hair or whatever, and I turned around and he was doubled up on his bed, laughing, trying to hold the laughter back from the mother. He said goodbye to her. So I said, what was that all about? And she just said, if you only know that guy for 5 years, put your wallet under the mattress tonight, because you wouldn't know what he'd do in the middle of the night. My early days in management, our first CEO of Irish Distillers, Richard Burrows, a great man, still around today, but he was strict and the job got done. But I was in my early days of management. I moved from the road into head office, and I was sitting down in the mezzanine area, and used to knock around with all the boys up in PR and marketing, and they were up. I'm in the ground level. They were up in the mezz. So one day, I was probably a couple of months of the job, and the phone rings. And in those days, the phone didn't show who was ringing. And I answered it, and this guy said, "Hello, John, Richard Burrows here." So I said to myself, that's one of the boys up in marketing messing. So he rabbled it on, and I was sort of looking up at the staircase and the pillars, and see a face coming up behind. After 5 minutes, he said something. I said, oh, Jesus, this is Richard. I don't know what he said for the last 5 minutes. Paul, anyway, helped me out in the end. And talking about him, just another funny incident. When 1996, it was just the year before we opened here, and Ivana, who was all of 25 now, was about 8 years of age, and the phone rang in our house one morning at about 7 o'clock. I happened to be in Middleton. So again, Richard just said, hello, is your dad there, please? So she says, hold on. So she ran up the stairs and saw Eileen in the bed on her own. So she came down and she just said, no, he didn't sleep here last night. So I had to get Paul to explain things to him on the phone later. To my tourism colleagues, I said we've had great times, and I indeed look forward to many more. And the abiding memory was once on an Australian mission. There's some shots of it there. But Jim Paul, head of Australia, and was looked after. He was the big boss, and all these nights there were sales calls by days, workshops in the evening with agents, and you'd have to go through, do presentations while the agents are having dinner. But at the end of the night, knowing the Irish, there was always time for a nightcap, no matter what time it was. But the last night in one of those missions was always party night. And because he was the boss, the hotel were after upgrading him to a suite. So we always had a party the last night. So I got the word around without any permission, said, party in Jim's room tonight. So we arrived up and, to our horror, realised there was no room service. So someone says, raid is minibar. So this minibar was huge. There was whiskies and gins and vodkas and brandies and beers and waters and crisps and nuts and crunchies and everything you can think of. So anyway, the following morning, you normally come down and they say, did you take anything at the minibar? And someone says, yeah, water. I was right beside him when he keeled over. She says, anything at a minibar, sir? He said, yes, everything. He paid 2 bills. One was the person's credit card for the minibar, which we said we'd pay him back, but I don't think we did. So that leads me on to my new chapter in my life, which I'm quite excited about. I officially finish here on the 30th of June, which is Monday week. And as Anna mentioned, I will continue to work as a consultant later in the autumn for probably 9 months or so. But I'll be doing that over 3 days a week, and I have 2 days to work on my own. So just informing you, all those tourism buddies, that as from July the 1st, John Callally International will be trading. Starting a consultancy specialising in visitor centres and representation. Some have mentioned over recent months that they see huge openings in developing gift shops in visitor centres around the country. So after 26 years experience sourcing new items for the gift shop, I think there may be food for thought there. My new PA, my wife Eileen, she has to be as nice to me as Patricia was, but along with my daughter Grace, really impressed me this week when they turned around my new temporary business card in 3 days while I was away. And there's one for everyone in the audience later on. They're over there in the corner of the bar. So just so we won't lose contact. But talking about PAs, my new PA leads me on to talk about my old PA of 26 years. Patricia retired last Friday after 33 years service to the company. And between the two of us, we gave 63 years service to Irish distillers. I remember I started working with Patricia back in 1988, and towards the end of the 90s, we were probably working 10 years together. It was the other PAs around the company worked out that Patricia and myself were the longest serving item after Richard Burrows and Paula Summers. Paula's here to confirm that. But I just asked her today, asked Paula, how long did you work for Richard? And she said 20 years. We made 26, so hopefully we'll get into the Jameson Book of Records. Patricia indeed was the tourism trade I'd suffered with, or I'd travelled with, often envied me having Patricia. When they see the way itineraries typed up, they say the way sheet is spoiled. So it'd be sheet leaving Dublin Airport on the 105 at 7:15, arriving at the hotel name, address, telephone numbers, all the meetings typed out. Where other guys would be going through bits of paper in their bag to pull out a flight, going into an email to see where the address of their first appointment was, but from top to bottom, and even when she could print out my boarding pass, that was done too. So I could show you, everybody used to say to me, why can't I have a Patricia? But I was one of the lucky ones. Patricia had her small reception last Friday. She said she wanted to go quietly, but she would be here today. And I know in front of so many of these people from the industry, the tourism industry, are good friends of yours too, because you often spoke to them on the other side of the phone as well. So I know they'd want to join me in once again wishing you a long, long retirement, filled with good health and every happiness. Finally, to my team at the OJD and the JEM. I want to thank all of them for their dedicated efforts in growing our business from the early days where we had 11,000 visitors through Whiskey Corner when I came in, to 400,000 visitors a day between Dublin and Midleton. And I worked it out during the week. Since we opened, we've welcomed over 7 million visitors through our doors. And I know that after every tour, we send hundreds of advocates out those doors and the doors of Midleton every day over those long years. So to my entire team, I just want to say I didn't do it on my own. I think the strapline from a recent Ernst & Young ad campaign says it all. Teams get results when talent works together. Finally, Anna, I just want to thank you. I thank Irish Distillers Pernod Ricard for 30 great years of my life, and wish you personally and the company continued success as our brands continue to grow so successfully in so many markets around the world. Thank you.